Good evening, everybody. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, distinguished guests, fellow members of Engineers Ireland, our speakers this evening, and our President, Maurice Buckley. My name is Barry Hyland, and I'm Chair of Engineers Ireland up here in the North East region. So, on behalf of this region, it is our honour and great pleasure to welcome you all here this evening for this significant event. It is our Brexit lecture series. So this is the first of 4 events planned, and I will tell you more about the other 3 events towards the end of tonight's session. But briefly, the topics for discussion this evening, we're going to talk about the new EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement, its impact on standards and conformity, and also about supports and advice available to business and individuals from Intertrade Ireland. To introduce the series, I briefly going to hand over to Maurice Buckley, our president now, just to say a few words before I do the formal introduction and give some house rules for this evening. So Maurice, over to yourself for a few words.
Thank you, Barry. And yes, as President of Engineers Ireland, I'd like to welcome everybody to this event this evening. As Barry says, it's the first of 4 Brexit lectures, which we're really looking forward to. So I hope you enjoy it this evening and you pick up some valuable insights. This is my second Northeast region event in as many working days. On Friday, we had a very successful business lunch discussion with 3 businesses from the region, which I think went very well, and I was happy to chair that discussion. It's also a great pleasure for me tonight to join forces again with Mary White, the first of our speakers. Mary and I worked together for 10 years in NSAI, and I'm delighted she is bringing a standards and certification flavour to this event tonight, which, as many of you might know, is one of the themes of my presidency. In fact, it was at the AGM of Engineers Ireland last June when, facing the mega challenges that we face in this country of recovering from the COVID pandemic and Brexit and its impact on Ireland, I set down the challenge to all the members of Engineers Ireland to come up with a response as an organisation and from the engineering profession as to how we would deal with these challenges. And there are many different ideas that came forward, but one of them was this series of Brexit-focused lectures. And while the scale and the impact of the COVID pandemic is obviously dominating the news, and we're all focused on vaccination and gradual release from restrictions, I genuinely believe that in the medium term, and in terms of its impact, long-term impact on the economy, Brexit may be the more important of the 2, or the more long-lasting of the 2, certainly, challenges that we face. And it's not just a challenge either. I certainly believe that Brexit is a great opportunity for Irish business to think a little bit more ambitiously than looking just to our neighbouring island as export markets. Now let's look to all of Europe. And I think it's going to force us to take a different approach and a stronger approach to our business. But I think they're the type of questions that we'll be teasing out tonight and over the 4 lectures. What is the role that engineers can play? What can they do in terms of certification of products, in terms of use of technology, in terms of changing supply lines, in terms of all the different things that are necessary for companies, not just to adapt to the Brexit world, but to do so successfully and maybe to get a step up on their competitors. So it's going to be very interesting, and without further ado, I'll hand you back to Barry Hyland, the chairman of the North East region.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you for that. So, not to delay too much longer. So, on behalf of Engineers Ireland in the North East, we're delighted to have, as Maurice said, 2 excellent speakers with us this evening. As Maurice said, Mary White, who's head of NSAI Brexit Unit, and Deirdre Maguire, who's manager of Intertrade Ireland's Brexit Advisory Service. So both these individuals are involved in everything Brexit day in, day out. It's part of their roles and part of their leadership. So the 2 very interesting, and we're really delighted to have 2 such exceptional speakers for us here in the Northeast tonight. So I want to personally thank both Mary and Deirdre for agreeing to come along and talk to us this evening. A few ground rules before I stop. Again, any questions are welcome, so I'd ask you to please use the Q&A function on your Zoom interface to type in and submit your questions. Don't use the chat function to pose any questions to panelists. If it's appropriate, state the name, either Mary or Deirdre, if you want to ask specifically one or the other a particular question. And you can ask questions throughout. Now, it looks like we'll have about 15 minutes or so at the end, where hopefully we'll get through all those questions. We'll get through as many as we can. Anyway, that's the idea for tonight. So any questions, put them into the Q&A, not into the chat function. So that's really all I have to say now, other than to welcome our first speaker, if I can tonight, Mary White. Mary, I'll hand over to yourself now.
Good evening, Barry, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to Engineers Ireland. Well, we're 88 days now into this new EU-UK free trade agreement, and this evening I want to give you an insight as to what is involved in product regulatory requirements, the changes that have taken place since the 1st of January, and the implications for the supply chain when trading with the UK. CE marking is a legal requirement for placing products in the EU market to demonstrate that they conform to the relevant EU directives and regulations regarding health and safety. And I want to focus on the changes that have taken place since the 1st of January and what adjustments you may now have to make. I may not have all the answers to your questions in the chat, but you can send an email into the Brexit unit and we will come back to you. So everything changed on the 1st of January. The transition period ended and the Trade and Cooperation Agreement came into operation. The UK became a third country where EU law no longer applies. UK product law now applies in Great Britain rather than EU law, and UK notified bodies are no longer recognised in the EU. UCAS accredited certificates are not valid for harmonised products, and the protocol on Ireland-Northern Ireland has come into effect. But what hasn't changed? Some have remained the same. EU law still applies to products from the UK placed on the EU market. It is not where the product is manufactured that is important, but where it is placed on the market. They must be CE marked, certified by an EU27 notified body, if required by the regulation, have a valid and up-to-date declaration of conformity or performance in the case of construction. UK manufacturers can continue to self-certify their product where permitted once they meet the requirement of the EU legislation. So 80% of products are self-certified. And in terms of Irish domestic legislation, remember, for example, Irish building regulations will still apply to any UK manufactured product used in a construction project here. Now, the protocol on Northern Ireland, the protocol protects the Good Friday Agreement, North-South cooperation, and the all-island economy, and it has applied since the 1st of January. It avoids the need for a hard border on the island of Ireland, and it protects Ireland's place in the EU single market and customs union. Most of the changes apply to trade with GB, do not apply to trade with Northern Ireland. EU product legislation will continue to apply in Northern Ireland, and it means that goods moving to and from Northern Ireland will largely continue to do so with no significant changes. So how does the system work? Well, there are 5 components to the system. And here you see that the EU drafts regulations and directives which breaks down the barriers to trade to facilitate the free movement of products to trade. And the obligations and responsibilities are with economic operators known as manufacturers, importers, and distributors. Now, standards and technical specifications, they show you how you meet these requirements. And this can be done through harmonized standards, which are mandatory, or technical specifications, which are voluntary. The third-party certification demonstrates that your product meets the requirement of the regulation directive where required, and there's an agreed framework within the EU known as notified bodies. Now, once the declaration of conformity has been drawn up, the manufacturer must affix a CE mark to the product, and the CE mark enables a product to be placed legally on the market in an EU member state and then be traded on the EU's single market. And finally, we must have market surveillance to ensure that products placed on the market comply with the requirements of the regulation and directive. Now, there are 5 overarching pieces of EU legislation for placing products on the market, and then there is legislation for specific products. And the first one is the Directive 2001, General Product Safety Directive. And this directive applies to all products where there are no specific provisions on, in other EU legislation with the same objective. Now, Regulation 765, I'm going to talk about a lot this evening, and it lays down common rules for accrediting bodies that ensure products in the EU conform to certain requirements. And it establishes a surveillance system to guarantee a high level of safety of those products and, in general, their compliance with applicable requirements. It also sets rules in regard to controls on imports from outside the EU and establishes the general principles for CE marking. Now, Regulation 1025, this is a regulation that establishes rules with regard to the cooperation between EU, European standards organisations, national standards bodies and member states in the EU, and its establishment of European standards for products to support of union legislation and policies. So a harmonised standard means a European standard adopted on the basis of a request made by the Commission for the application of union harmonisation legislation. Now, the last 2 regulations, 768, this refers to market surveillance and compliance of products, and EU 1020/2019 aims to improve how the free movement of goods principles works by strengthening market surveillance of products covered by EU harmonisation. So here we have regulations and directives, and in yellow, here are blue, here are the 10 regulations, and there are 22 directives. Of those, there are 11 directives and regulations which there are Irish notified bodies for. So here is a simple, I would like to take you through a roadmap regarding the players involved and their roles and responsibilities in each member state, in this case, Ireland. So here we have notifying authorities, which would be the HPRA for medical devices, DETE, Comreg for electrical and electronic equipment, and Department of Housing for construction products. So they are notifying authorities in Ireland who report into the EU. Then we have INAB, which is Ireland's Irish National Accreditation Body, and it provides accreditation to applicant conformity assessment bodies, known as notified bodies, that test, certify, and inspect product services. So in the UK, this would be UCAS. And here in Ireland are our 17 notified bodies now in Ireland. And up to 3 years ago, there were only 3 notified bodies. So there's a lot of UK formerly notified bodies who've now come over to Ireland. Here are the market surveillance authorities in Ireland, and here NSAI, we are a market surveillance authority for non-automatic weighing machines. And up in the top left-hand corner, you'd have the National Building Control Office. So what is an economic operator responsibilities? Well, this table summarises the main responsibilities of economic operators for the manufacturer, the importer, and the distributor. And it shows the differences in responsibility between each of these. And as you can see in this column here, you have got the first column there is the manufacturer. So the manufacturer's main responsibilities are he must keep the documentation for 10 years, ensure consistent production, monitor the product in the market where appropriate. Now, if you're an importer, you must be satisfied that the manufacturer has done all that is required. However, if you're a distributor, you don't have the same responsibilities as an importer. And this is since January, there are some people who were distributors have now become importers. And I will talk more about that later. So while distributors, they may have fewer responsibility than the manufacturer or importer, as they source their products from other economic operators already in the legal jurisdiction of the EU. Now, in the UK, there is a new legal framework replacing the EU legislation. And the UK put in place this framework for product certification, whereby UK legislation replaced existing EU legislation. It applies to products placed on the Great Britain market, that is England, Scotland and Wales. The protocol on Ireland, Northern Ireland means that does not generally apply to the Northern Ireland market. And UK product legislation effectively transposed EU product legislation into UK law, so many of the details are similar, and I would like to say for the moment. So the UK CA mark replaces the CE mark. UK approved bodies replace EU notified bodies. UK designated standards replaced harmonised standards. And the UK Declaration of Conformity replaces EU Declaration of Conformity, and UK customers of EU manufacturers become importers. So to summarise, within the EU 27, including Ireland, the EU legislation that I talked about earlier is Regulation 765 in 2008, which refers to accreditation and market surveillance. And now in the UK, you've got the UK draft statutory instrument on product and safety metrology. So what has changed here are harmonised standards have become designated standards, notified bodies have become approved bodies, and the CE mark is replaced by the UK CA mark. Now, in terms of Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland Protocol, Article 7 of the protocol states, includes provision for manufacturers who do not want to CE mark their products for the EU, but who still want to sell in Northern Ireland. They are the normal EU product certification marks with a UK NI or United Kingdom indication added. To get the mark, products must meet the requirements of the EU product legislation. And this is very important, and this means including harmonised standards where required. They will be certified by UK notified bodies who will be recognised on NANDO, which is the European database for notified bodies, for Northern Ireland only. And there's only 4 Northern Ireland notified bodies, and they are the only people who can certify for the Northern Ireland market only. They must be marked with the CE mark and the Northern Ireland mark, as I've shown here, and any products bearing the new mark cannot be placed on the EU market. These are other marks that are there as well. And you do not need to use this new mark if your products are CE marked for the EU market. So this is a very important point to remember. The CE mark in Northern Ireland would be sufficient if you're a Northern Ireland manufacturer and you wish to place your products on the GB market. It will still be recognised. Now, in terms of for Northern Ireland, what has changed for them? Well, the introduction of the UK CA mark, the CE UK NI mark, and post-Brexit, you can see that Northern Ireland applies the EU legislation, harmonised standards, and for notified bodies. And it's just important to remember those changes. Now, in terms of acceptance of the CE mark. So the UK product legislation has applied in Great Britain since the 1st of January, and CE marked industrial products are accepted in Great Britain until the 31st of December or the end of this year. But in the last few weeks, there have been more updates and modifications for 2 directives. That is the Marine Directive and the Transportable and Pressure Equipment. And this has now been extended, the transition period for these 2 directives until December 2022. So what is important is that you must have the EU Declaration of Conformity and Performance, an EU notified body certification, and harmonised standards. There will be a new from the 1st of January, then CE marked products are no longer accepted in Great Britain, and there is a new building safety bill which will come into force, and the new regulator there for this will be the OPSS, and that will have mandatory quality system for products. And if you are placing a product on the UK market, you must have a valid declaration of conformity. And there are more links here on the UK website downloads. Now, in terms of medical devices, there are implications for all EU notified bodies who wish to apply to become approved bodies. And so, as I mentioned earlier, all CE markings will be valid for medical devices until the 30th of June 2023. And the UK marking is valid from the 1st of January of this year. But it's mandatory then from the 1st of July. However, there is a slight difference here because the legislation that will apply in Great Britain will be the UK Medical Devices Regulation in the form that they exist since the 1st of January. And this means they will be using three medical device directives here. So you must have a UK approved body must be used for these directives. However, in the rest of Europe, there's a new medical device regulation that comes into force on the 26th of May. And this applies in both Ireland and Northern Ireland. So here you can see these two are the two new regulations. So EU notified bodies would have to apply to become UK approved bodies and also undergo not only designation under the MHRA, but also accreditation to ISO 13485 under UCAS. So here you can see regulatory divergence. There is going to be two separate systems, certification systems, and two different directives and regulations. So it is advised that manufacturers outside the UK elect a UK responsible person if they are placing their products on the UK market. Now, I've shown you earlier a slide from the roles and responsibilities in Europe, and here is a similar roadmap for roles and responsibilities in the UK. What has changed here is there's a notified body, which would be the MHRA for medical devices and UCAS, and the accreditation body in the UK is UCAS. For medical devices, these are the three approved bodies, UK approved bodies, BSI, SGS and UL. And of what I showed you earlier, these are the approved bodies both in Ireland and the UK. So all of these companies can both have dual certification, such as BRE, which is for construction, and SATRA, and SafeNet and FN approvals. Right now, they can issue the CE mark and the UK CA mark. And in the UK, you have the technical assessment body called the BRE, and they would be for innovative products. And here is a sample of market surveillance authorities in the UK. So the UK conformity assessment body, instead of NANDO, it's called the UK Market Conformity Assessment Body. There were 167 UK notified bodies. There are now 141 approved bodies in the UK. And you can see a list of these approved bodies if you click on the link given below. So if you are a manufacturer, and you want to know, well, what products do I need, or what marks do I need? I just want to refresh your mind here. If you are placing a product on the EU, you must use the CE mark. In Northern Ireland, it's the CE UK mark. And if you're going onto the Great Britain market, it's both the UK and the CA mark. And that is valid until the end of the year. However, in Great Britain, you must adhere to UK legislation and you must use the UK CA mark. Now, from the 1st of January, 2022, you will no longer be able to use the CE mark as previously spoken about. So how will the supply chain be impacted? So the four economic operators are the manufacturer, the importer, an authorized representative, and the distributor. These are the four economic operators as defined by the EU. So in terms, if you are an Irish manufacturer, you are then importing into Great Britain, and you therefore you become a UK importer and you must abide by UK rules. If you're importing products from Great Britain, you'll become an importer. So what is the role then for the Irish importer? who will now be importing products from the UK. If you had been a distributor for the UK, this has changed since the 1st of January, and you must remember what rules that the importer must conform to. So if you are using construction products, you should check Article 13 of the EU Construction Products Regulation. So under EU law, importers are responsible for ensuring that the manufacturer has produced the products in accordance with the relevant legislation. And you need to find out what additional responsibilities you'll be taking on. And these are set out in the individual relevant EU legislation. And you can get guidance from this in the Blue Guide. And I'll later on, I'll have a link for this. So you need to talk to your UK suppliers or manufacturers so they are aware of what you require. It is important that you do this. You must also be able to access the manufacturer's technical file. This is very important when requested by the market surveillance authorities. And it has been stated that the declaration of conformity should accompany the product consignment in a shipment to avoid delays. Your details as an importer must be included on the packaging. And along with that, so that the market surveillance authorities have this information. And as a simple guide, it just avoids an awful lot of delays. But it is very important that as an importer, you must have both the manufacturer's packaging and the importer's packaging. So what are the impacts of Brexit? I would like to draw your attention to a very useful document. It is one of the readiness notices that was issued by the EU in March 2020. And this states the general principles for economic operators, and they must comply with their obligations and responsibilities under Regulation 765/2008 when placing a product on the EU market. And both the authorised representatives and importers must be established in an EU 27. So the EU is advising they are strongly advising that British standards can no longer be used for product certification where the relevant EU legislation mandates the use of a harmonised European standard. So you would, so if you had a BSEN, it must be very important that it just states EN, not BSEN, in the technical file. Where harmonised standards, European standards are not mandated, manufacturers should follow the requirements set out in the relevant EU product legislation. So British standards are likely to be acceptable where the regulation allows the use of international standards, European standards, or national standards from third countries. And the UK Accreditation Service has ceased to be a national accreditation body within the meaning and for the purpose of Regulation 765. So as UK bodies have lost their status last December. So it is worth noting that it could be a formal non-compliance to refer to a BSEN on a declaration of conformance marking if the product is being placed on the EU market. And here is the link to this guide. They have very good examples in this document of case studies of what would be required now within the EU. So it is worthwhile downloading this document. It's a good reference document. So if I'm an economic operator then importing from Great Britain, the company in Great Britain producing the product is the manufacturer, is still defined as a manufacturer under EU law. Their customer in Ireland will become an importer and take on the additional responsibilities. But anyone that they sell onto will be a distributor. Now, there is another piece of information which I'm not sure that you may be aware of, but it refers to wood packaging materials. And in ISPM 15 sets down standards for the treatment and marking of wood packaging materials such as pallets, crates, and dunnage. And basically, it is given effect in EU law through Regulation 2016. And under this regulation, all pallets must be treated to kill all pests and diseases and marked with this mark. So if a consignment does not have this stamp on it, customs will actually stop that particular, whatever is on that pallet. And it applies to both exporting and importing. But one caveat, if you are going north-south, it does not apply. That is going north and south of Ireland. So it is very important that you should be aware of this. There are over 100 million pallets in the UK. There are 50 pallet manufacturers in Ireland, and NSAI, we certify them, but the whole control and certification of this operation is under the control of the Department of Agriculture. Okay, and for more information regarding inquiries, I would suggest Revenue have a lot of information, in particular about exporting and importer summary declarations. And my colleague Ray Ryan in Revenue they have great information there, and they're only too happy to help you with this. And more information can be found on the Revenue Commissioner's website. Now, we in NSAI, we have a series of frequently asked questions, and Department of Housing have a very good frequently asked questions. So we have a resource portal on the NSAI website, and we are constantly updating our FAQs. And more information that I mentioned to you earlier is the Blue Guide, and this Blue Guide here will be revised later on this year. So these are a few useful links that you may find of some use to you. And if you have any further questions, I'll take them later on. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mary. That was very, very interesting. Thank you. A lot in those slides, and I should have said earlier on, the slides will be circulated to the attendees at the end of the meeting. I think morning you get them around, if not this evening. Expect to see them tomorrow. Thank you, Mary, as I say. So moving on then to our next speaker now, who I have great pleasure in introducing this evening, Deirdre Maguire, who, as I said earlier, is the manager of Intertrade Ireland's Brexit Advisory Service. And Deirdre will talk to us about the many supports available and advice available to businesses and individuals from Intertrade Ireland. So Deirdre, over to yourself now.
Thank you so much, Barry, and thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to share my slides, but I just wanted to say as well, Mary, thank you for that presentation. That was absolutely really, really brilliant. So I myself am still learning every day. So right, just get the slides up. Okay, so I just said Deirdre Maguire from Intertrade Ireland, and for any of you who don't know who Intertrade Ireland are, we are a cross-border body and we are funded by the government in the north and the government in the south, and our goal is to help cross-border traders, help them grow their sales, help them keep their sales, and just basically move around the island of Ireland as best they can, sort of. And that's what we do. So there's lots of different things that we do within Intertrade Ireland, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I've just quickly mention what they are. So the first thing that we do, we have programs that cover sales growth. So there's lots of different options in there, and those programs will run from funding, voucher funding, to getting somebody into your business to look after and help you with sales, and a mentor as well. So then we also have innovation projects. We have an all-island innovation program, which is a wealth of webinars and really good industry information. We also have programs which will be, it could be business-to-business partnerships, north-south, who have a really good idea. And you would find actually a lot in the engineering sort of sectors would use that. We also have what used to be called Fusion, which is getting, again, academia into the idea to get a graduate to help to work on it, and again, funding to help you work and take that from an idea into reality. So that's just very, very briefly what that innovation side is. We also have a funding advisory service. So if you are growing small business and you're looking to get if you can't get raising finance through, say, for banks examples, and you want to get money somewhere else, so that could be through angel investors, venture finance. It's just another way to look at getting funds for your idea or your business venture. So we've got a lot going on in that, lots of workshops and things that you can apply for all through the Trade Ireland website. And one really big competition that happens every year called Seed Corn, with a really good prize, and lots of innovative businesses have come along for the opportunity to win that. So that's a brilliant service as well. And then we also have a lot of research, Business Monitor research, and lots of insights and things in terms of trade statistics that we work very hard to try and keep going. And then the two very briefly things I'm going to touch on today are the COVID supports and the Brexit Advisory Service. So just to mention COVID, because I know it's kind of touched almost to every business and every person in loads of ways. And so what we've done in our remit is to put in two supports to help your business with COVID. The first one is Emergency Business Solutions, and that will help your business. If you're an SME and you're a cross-border trader, it can help you in the areas of mapping your supply chain. If you are worried about the legalities of the contracts with the people, it will help you with that. It will help you look at health and safety. It will get you consultancy support to maybe look at any legal issues you have, any financial cash flow issues. And another thing it does is, and we've seen a lot of businesses coming in to use it for this, is just to reposition their business strategy. So take stock of the model and go, right, well, everything's changed and we need to just go back to the drawing board here and make sure that our model is right. So that would be the repositioning of your business strategy. That's Emergency Business Support. It's the £2,000 voucher of consultancy support, fully funded. And then Emerge is the same premise. It's a voucher, it's £2,500, and that is to help your business get online. So basically the skills that you need to get that sort of online digital requirement that we all need at the moment. And that's the COVID supports. And then we've got the Brexit Advisory Service. So in the theme of Brexit, I'll take you through, I guess, what that is, what the supports are, and kind of what the issues we see at the moment, and just any advice that I can give you. Obviously, I know that we've got a mix of people here, but all from the one sector. So you might have common issues. So the Brexit Advisory Service is a small team of us, and we've been working for a number of years, primarily with voucher funding. So £2,000 worth of fully funded consultancy advice for an SME cross-border trader to get help. So basically, if you are sitting, pulling your hair out and you don't really know where to start or how to map even the regulation side of it, for an example, where to start, look at CE mark and look at your products, you can get help to do that. And this voucher is an online application form, and we have 100 service providers who are the consultants. And it's kind of a straightforward form to fill in, as I say, SME cross-border trader, and it will get you access to £2,000 worth of fully funded consultancy support. And that'll be in the areas such as mapping your supply chain, people, I'm going to come to some of these in a moment, finance, customs, regulation, and VAT, which is a very hot topic at the moment as well. So that's the Trade Ireland voucher. And just, this is where I just wanted to touch on, I suppose, the Brexit, sort of the detailed part of it. So what we have at the moment is we have a website, which is, it's our digital content, and we structure it in this way. And I guess for anybody who is thinking about Brexit, the piece of advice that I can give you is, if you think first of all of your own set of circumstances, okay, and then think about all of the things that you do and where they fit into these categories, which I'll mention in a moment, because Brexit has so many aspects and so many threads, but not all of them will be relevant to you. Some of them will, and over time you might find that more and more of them are, okay? So whenever the European Union sort of joined together with the UK, and I suppose they agreed to move forward, it was based on 4 freedoms: goods, services, people and capital, okay? So now if you're based in Northern Ireland or the UK, those threads are now coming apart basically, and everything is diverging. So this website is structured as trade and goods, trade and services, VAT, which is going to have its own standalone place very shortly, and people, okay? And if I just mention trade in goods, okay, so the trade in goods that we have on our website will cover customs, it will cover SPS checks for goods. It has a section on regulation, which will lead into NSAI. It has a section a little bit on procurement. It has labelling, it has bits on CE marking. And what it does is it gives you both north and south. So depending on where your business is based, it will give you both angles of Brexit and what you need to do within them. And the biggest thing that I would say to you is, and I guess it's in every part of Brexit and in every bit, and you'll hear many times about mapping your supply chain, but just map everything in your business, map your data, map your products that you are regulating. But by mapping your supply chain and starting to think about all of the aspects of everything that you move through, you will eventually then see almost everything that moves. And when you've done that, then that's when you think about where is this going? So what is the trade route? So is it going from Northern Ireland to Ireland? Is it a cross-border trader? In which case it follows NI protocol. Is it going from Ireland to GB? In which case it's following the UK rules if it's going into GB, and it's following the European Union rules if it's going into Ireland. And then again, if you're in Northern Ireland, another set of rules. So different rules and regulations, different types of customs paperwork. And for any people who buy parts or, you know, manufactured items that come from GB into Northern Ireland and then into across the border, so north-south, there's lots of things you need to be aware of, like claiming if your goods are at risk, how to claim a waiver, registering for trader support. I mean, there's a lot of detail here, which I'm not going to go into, but I would just say it's all in there on that website, and just think about the journey of your products. So that's the trade in goods. And it also covers things like agricultural food, and machinery, agricultural machinery. So things that you might not think about are connected to yourselves, but may have an impact depending on what your business is. The other thing which might be relevant to you tonight as well is the trade and services. So services is not covered by the NI protocol, and there are bits of it that are beginning to be sort of talked about. So GDPR is being talked about, financial services is being talked about between the UK and the EU, and we're very hopeful that there's going to be some kind of agreement there. But within trade and services, there are things like mutual recognition of qualifications, and again, we have some information on our website just about that, and where there is actually a piece in engineering and the qualifications that are mutually recognised, and they are. So that's a very positive thing. And that's the trade and services. Just there's loads of pieces in that. Public procurement has changed. So just to be aware of when contracts are advertised, the value of them, the way they're advertised is changed depending on where you're based and what system that you're looking for your contracts on. So if you are looking to look for tenders, you need to make sure that you're looking in the right place, and just be aware that there's changes in procurement as well. And again, we have that on the website. VAT, massive at the moment. Every business we have spoken to over the last number of months is asking a question on VAT. And what I would like to say at this juncture is I myself am not an expert in any of these things. I am still learning about Brexit, and my experience is that every business is different and every detail is slightly different. And what we can do is get you to the right people, get you to the right place, and help you with support. And finally, the other thing I wanted to mention was people. So depending on where you're based, if you are part of the common travel area, so if you're part of here in the island of Ireland and you're born here, then you will be able to avail of enjoy the common travel area. But if you have people working in your business who are EEA nationals, they need to apply to retain to live and work in the UK. There is another thing as well, which is called a frontier worker. Again, we do have some of this on the website, but if you are working, living in Dundalk and working in Uri, okay, you're a frontier worker. If you are living in Uri and working in Dundalk, you're a frontier worker. And if you are not born or live in the island of Ireland, then you may need to look at applying for a permit, simply put. So that's the people. And I guess what I would say to you then is, you know, that's a lot of information, and there is a lot of information, and not all of it will be relevant, but some of it will be. And if you are only coming at this for the very first time, there are so many tasks within each and every one of those categories. You know, I'm not sure how many people on this meeting today will actually trade in goods or have to look for things like commodity codes. But what I can definitely share with you is that almost every day we're asked a question from a business about commodity codes. You know, car parts coming into Northern Ireland, businesses might have thousands of them. You know, depending on what the actual product is, these are things that have an impact in the supply chain and in the flow of goods. So just to be mindful that, you know, the impact is kind of far-reaching. And the other thing is, I had a very difficult question posed to me there a while ago, and I asked a customs expert the question, and her answer to me, and it really struck with me, was, yes, it can be done. It's just more work. And to me, a lot of Brexit is, yes, it can be done, and yes, it is more work. And you know, Maurice touched at it at the very beginning about opportunities. So in every risk, you will know there is opportunity. And you know, so just be mindful that in doing all of these things, you will know more about all the things you need to know about trade, about regulation, and anything else that you need to be aware of. And you will be more prepared to go forward in your field. And then finally, there is so much support out there. So you are absolutely not on your own if you need to get some information. We're absolutely in a world of digital at the moment, and everything is at the touch of a button. And, you know, there's something as well about Brexit, is that the information is so fluid. The dates, like I could say last week that I knew every single date that was required for customs, but I have to go back in now and reread all those dates because they're changing all the time. So you have this at your fingertips. If you get familiar with the sites and the government supports and just know where to go to quickly get your answers. And I would just say that's a really good piece of advice as well. Again, webinars are absolutely the way to go as well. So very quickly, the cross-border supports I've mentioned for Intertrade Ireland, you've got loads. You've got Enterprise Ireland, you've got all your local enterprise offices, SBCI loan schemes, you have Microfinance Ireland, Board BA, Skillnet, NSAI, who you've got Food Standards Association of Ireland, and you've got the government websites and the Department of Agriculture. So there's loads and loads there. And each and every one of those will take you into the places that you need to go. For the Northern Ireland businesses, again, you've got the gov.uk transition site for anybody based in Northern Ireland. And if you haven't done it already, I would highly recommend that you go into the transition site and you just register to get updates, and they'll come into your inbox every day on the things that you really, really need to know about, if it's regulation, and they will come in and you'll be registered on that. And then you've got Invest NI, who hold clinics. They've held clinics throughout March and continue to do so on all aspects of Brexit, including things like chemicals. You've got all your supply chains and regulations, and they've got really, really good support there. And then you've got Deirdre. So hot topic at the moment is the SPS checks and getting ready for that. And then just I'd finally put down there, so just key tip is watch out for webinars, and you know, don't be afraid to come and contact us. We have Brexit@IntradeIreland.com, and that's the link to the website. If you want to just get onto the website, key Intrade Ireland Brexit, and that will take you through. And if you do want to apply for the voucher funding, it's on that page and it's online. And you know, just know that there is a lot of information. It might not all be relevant to you, and there is a path forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was great. Very interesting, very informative, and lots of sites and lots of information for people to go to. So as I said earlier on, the slides will be circulated by Maureen either immediately after the session this evening or early tomorrow. So we've 10 minutes briefly